Welcome into the Just Basketball Show for Friday, May 19th. Chris Manning, Brendan Clean. Special guest today, Sabrina Merchant from The Athletic. Sabrina, you are the guest I think we're most excited about, but also the first guest we've ever had and probably the only one who has also appeared on Jeopardy. So for me, this is a big deal. Yeah. For me, as a lifelong Jeopardy person, this is a big deal. This is a really big deal for me.
I'm happy to break the streak.
Yeah, this is we need like NBA and WNBA like Jeopardy as like a thing, as like a TV show on ESPN. It could be like 1 a.m, but I feel like we should have that personally.
I 100% agree. Basketball Jeopardy all the time. Yeah.
I spent a decent portion of halftime in a rabbit hole on Basketball Reference of coaching staffs because Jeff Van Gundy got my wheels turning of like his tree and Tom Thibodeau and all the rest. So NBA basketball trivia, I vote yes. In all walks of life.
There will be things we need a category though that's like Jimmy Butler stories that are true or false, and it's either Paul Bunyan like level. Like we don't know if that's true or not. But
Jimmy Butler or Paul Bunyan, yeah, just one of those.
Yeah, one of the two. It's the same thing. It could be true. It might also just be fake. But I'm here to make miss about Jimmy Butler. All right, we're gonna start with Lakers Nuggets. We're gonna get to WNBA burning questions as we get in here. But Nuggets are up 2-0 in the series, 108 to 103. This is, to me, guys, the only thing I can say about this game. The Lakers are not going to win games if Anthony Davis is 4 of 15 from the field and LeBron James is 9 of 19 and looks old. I know like he almost has a triple-double. I know AD is 18 and 14 and took 11 free throws. If those guys are 13 and 33 and 34 from the field, I don't think the Lakers are going to win this series or have a chance to win it. Is that too simplistic?
No, I don't think it's too simplistic. Sabrina, this was kind of like a perfect game script for the Lakers, though, right? I mean, low scoring. Yes, those guys didn't shoot well, but neither did the Nuggets' best guys, and they were close late.
I'm sorry, are we talking about Jamal Murray not shooting well?
Well, for most of the game, they had a golden opportunity there, it feels like. I'm not the one who feels like going down 2-0 is like a curse, the end of the world, but that did feel like a big one.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen series in the Western Conference each of the last 2 years. If I'm thinking back further, I'm sure there are more, but there are plenty of series where a team wins the first 2 games at home and does not win the full series. And I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen here for the Nuggets because they look like the better team. And with this every other day schedule, I don't see how LeBron is going to get more healthy, especially since he appeared to injure the ankle on the same foot that probably needs off-season surgery at the end of the game. And when you lose both games like this, where one is like 2 diametrically opposed games in terms of styles, right? And you can't figure out a way to win either, that's a problem. So I don't feel very good about the Lakers going forward. But then again, all they really have to do is just to hold home court in game 3 and put a little pressure on game 4. But the Dillon minutes are probably my least favorite thing that's happening with the Lakers right now. I just want to put that out there.
It's such a minefield where they're going to get offense. And that was, that's been true all playoffs. But, it was like, was he 6 of 6, Rui, in the first half or something like that? And then makes his first 2 coming out and then misses his last 2, including a mid-range jumper late. And then it was Reeves to close the game. But it feels like their luck maybe is running out. I mean, I've been saying all playoffs that Denver just gives you the smallest margin for error of any team. And you can't be looking around for answers against the Denver Nuggets because they have them and they're going to score most of the time, which is why I was mentioning, if you can get them down to 108, that's probably the one you want to win.
Exactly.
But Chris, we were talking about Jamal Murray, who I think is the story of this game in a lot of ways. People were comparing it to Jason Tatum's game 6 in Philly, with the sort of no, yes quarter breakdown and what he did going off and giving Mike Breen a bang, which was just iconic and a lot more confident than I am in my day-to-day life.
Sure.
But we were talking about him as a championship number 2, like just the idea of what he is and how unique he is in that type of role. I mean, I think this Denver team, if they keep going the direction they're going, will be interesting in a lot of ways because they just don't really stack up to a lot of how we think about basketball teams right now or ever. But it just continues to be crazy to me to think that this dude, with how streaky he can be, is potentially going to be a number 2 player on a, championship team, a team in the finals that has a real chance to win the whole thing. Like that's the part of this that Jokic I get. That's the part of this that I can't wrap my mind around. It's like an even streakier Kyrie Irving.
But I think it's because of Jokic that this is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Murray was the number 2 with pick any other star, with Book and Phoenix, with LeBron, with Jason Tatum, with Embiid even, I don't think this is happening. I think the way Murray plays and how in sync he has become with Jokic and what those two guys do to build off of each other. I mean, just watching them run the pick and roll and how they just immediately know how to flip it. They know how to just get into a second action right away. It is just like instantaneous with those guys, and it just accentuates what makes Murray a special player, that he's willing to shoot, that he's willing to be aggressive. I just think it's the contextual bit of he is with Jokic as the number 2. If this was with anybody else, we'd be like, he needs to be the number 3 or whatever, but it's because he's with Jokic that I think this works.
It's kind of like, I guess, Amari Stoudemire, not to make it a Phoenix thing, but it's like that guy at one point was going to be a number 2 on a legitimate championship team. You would never think that. You never would have been big picture thinking of him as that good, quote unquote, because he was really a liability on defense, didn't have that well-rounded of an offensive game, all things considered. He could score at all levels, but he wasn't going to pass or really like post up or anything like that. And yet there he was, but that was because of Steve Nash. So I hear you. It was cool tonight to see how that 2-man game, like what part of it or what aspect of it night to night is running the best for them, whether it's straight up pick and roll, whether it's dribble handoff, or in this case, it was almost like a reverse kind of pin down into a pick and roll where Jokic, it was a dribble handoff, but with Murray like sprinting toward the screen, toward the perimeter, and they got some nice threes and stuff out of that. And it's just so unpredictable.
The other thing I think coming out of this game, and Sabrina, I'm curious what you both think about this, but we'll start with you. So Seth Partnow put a tweet from Matt Moore like on my feed earlier, and Matt, the tweet is the number 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10 defenses from the regular season that are schedule adjusted. So all but 2 of the top 10 defenses are out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like the Nuggets are the perfect team to feel like they're going to win the title in this year, because this is the offense team. This is the team where like the center is the defensive liability, and like they don't, like Aaron Gordon is their best version of like an apex swing and wing defender. This team's offensive ceiling is so high. And the way this is breaking, it kind of feels to me like we're headed, like the Nuggets feel like the right team for what this moment of the NBA is, and Jokic is the right superstar for it. Is that galaxy brain of me? Is that like where are we at? Because it's wild to me that we think about defenses win championships, and there's only 2 of the top defenses are left out of the final 4 teams. They're all just gone.
Yeah, I kind of think that's more of a fluke than anything, just because like we're watching the Heat play defense now, and it's looks nothing like what they did during the regular season. And the champions last year, Golden State, they were a terrific defense. And I know we're about to talk about the WNBA in a little bit, and like that's definitely a league where the best offenses win titles. I just don't think that that's where the NBA is at this point. I just think that the team quality is generally a little bit weaker this year than we have seen in previous seasons. Like there aren't great teams that are, going to give Denver difficulty like the Warriors did last year. So I'm not so sure that it's offense has taken over and this is an era where great offensive teams can finally, get past their defensive foibles. I think Denver's a good enough defensive team. They clearly just like did not care for the last 6 weeks of the season, and that probably ruined the numbers a little bit.
Yes.
But I also think that like this is not the obviously I'm not saying that there's like any asterisked path to the playoffs or whatever. Like this is a Laker team that has been playing together for 3 months, right? Whose best player, either Anthony Davis or LeBron James, one of them is due for foot surgery and the other one is rumored to be due for another surgery. I haven't quite figured out what that is, but like he's not great either. I mean, it's a team that regularly relies on 3-guard lineups, and ball handlers who have never had success in the postseason before. Like it's a perfectly fine team, and like they have LeBron and they have AD, and it's a decent ceiling. I just don't think that because Denver is getting past them that it's this referendum on offense finally overcoming defense.
Want to go to the W, Chris?
Yeah, look,
we don't have to make her talk about the team that just beat her team anymore.
The thing is, I think the Nuggets are very likable. I was having a great time watching Bruce Brown. Like the one time D'Lo blocked him and Bruce Brown clapped at him, like, yeah, thank you for playing defense. That was the funniest thing that happened all game.
It was also awesome to watch how happy Michael Porter Jr. was getting during Jamal Murray's explosion. Like they seem like they're having fun, and it's their first time. So look, they beat the Suns as well. I'm not taking any pleasure in any of this myself, but it's hard to hate them.
Yeah, and their deepest playoff run came in the bubble, without any fans in front of them, and now they get to play these awesome home games in Denver, and it looks like a great time.
Yeah. They won a game where they kept painting to Russell Wilson, and I was like, guys, you're cursing the vibes with
today was Peyton Manning, so
yeah, but much better. The last thing we'll say is Brendan, you pointed this out, and I want to kick the Brooklyn Nets for a second. Do you know where I'm going with this? That you texted me earlier. You know about the
yeah, you can say it.
Okay. It's very funny that the Nets kind of let Bruce Brown go because they had Ben Simmons. Just like what are we doing, Brooklyn? What are we doing? Oh boy, I can't.
Not wrong. It's because I said it, so that's why I'm saying you're right. But
yeah, no, you're right, but it's very bleak. All right, let's go to some burning questions. Brendan, I believe you have a couple.
I want to get Sabrina's picks on a few things before we really hop into the questions per team. So. I hope you had it. We gave you the outline. I hope you saw this portion of it, Sabrina. But this is a year in the WNBA that's going to be defined by the top two teams, and then sort of can anyone else get into the conversation of those two teams. And so with that said, and we'll talk about those two first, we're going to go in order of title odds. But who is your title pick right now as we embark on this season?
So I did make some of these picks on The Athletic already, and I would like to stay consistent just because, one, I don't want to have people saying that I'm already changing my mind. But just for thoroughness, I took the liberty to win the title. The reason for that is I just have a very hard time believing that Breanna Stewart is going to keep losing in the playoffs.
I think we talked about this when the teams when the dust settled, Chris, in free agency. I said the Liberty at that time. Did you as well?
You're asking me to remember what I said.
Well, what do you think? Tell me now what your pick is.
I'm gonna go with the Liberty, but do I feel how confident do I feel? And that would be like a 5 because it's just. But I feel like there are two teams we're gonna be picking between. Sure. The betting odds certainly indicate that as well. That there's a vast gap between. Yes. There's two super teams and there's a massive drop off. But I will go to the rule. It's because of Stewie. It's because they have a really good coach. They've assembled a really good roster. I think we're also just kind of waiting for some version of a Sabrina Ionescu breakout, and maybe her as the complement to what Stewie is kind of unlock some things for her in a different way that kind of elevates her. I think that's on the table. They feel like the team that just has all the momentum, and it's partially because they got in her prime, one of the best players of all time that's just ready to go. That's kind of part of this.
All right, breakout team, Sabrina. Who's the team that maybe obviously isn't going to be in that top cluster, but even somebody in the bottom half of the league who basketball fans might want to tune into, who you think could be better than expected?
I'm really excited to watch Atlanta this year. I don't know where any of their interior scoring is going to come from, but frankly, that's not that interesting to me. So they've got a really, really good guard group. Haley Jones is one of my top 3 favorite players in last year's draft. I just absolutely love watching her play and letting her play with some pace in transition. God forbid Stanford ever did that. It's going to be so much fun to watch in Atlanta. I love Alicia Gray, Erin McDonald, Ryan Howard. I mean, they just have a bunch of really active, feisty perimeter defenders, and they're going to get into the paint a lot. I don't know how effective of a scoring team they're going to be, but I think it's going to be really fun to watch, and that's the one I have an eye on.
Huge Ryan Howard fan, as we'll talk about when we get to the Atlanta Dream section of the team burning questions. But I like that one for sure. Breakout player. Similar question, but maybe if people are more of the let's find a player who I enjoy and forget the other four guys or girls on the court, who should they be tuning into this W season?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this still counts, considering she just swept like every Italian league award, including, league MVP, finals MVP, best import, yada, yada, yada. But Marina Mabrey, she was not an all-star last year, has not been in her WNBA career. The Sky gave up a buttload of picks to bring her into Chicago. She's arguably the best ball handler and best shooter on the Sky. And, there's going to be some offense to create there. So I think she's going to have the opportunity to put up a lot of numbers, and Chicago's definitely trying to win, for better or worse. The Isabel Harrison news is a real gut punch. I had originally put Chicago 4th in my preseason rankings, and I feel very silly about that now. But I do think Marina's going to have an excellent season, and I would pencil her in as an all-star right away.
Very fun fit with Kalia Copper, too. Just
Absolutely.
How they balance one another, sort of finesse, shooting, power game, perimeter game, all that.
A lot of trash talk. Yeah.
A lot of trash talk. That should be awesome as well. All right, let's dive into questions, Chris. So I don't know, Sabrina, if you have your own questions or if you want to bounce off of ours. How do you want to do this?
Let's bounce off of yours.
Okay. Chris, you start us off here in order of BetMGM title odds.
All right, so Las Vegas Aces, the defending champs, we should note, we haven't talked about this on the show, but that there is some stuff going on, let's say, with the Las Vegas Aces right now, and they're not exactly representing themselves in a very clear way. So that is a very awkward situation with what Becky Hammond said at the time, and then what the suspension has resulted in for her. That is a very weird look. Didn't expect Liz that be the Liz Cambage mentioned first this season, was that whole saga, but here we are. As a basketball team, they're at plus 115 at BetMGM to win the title. That is the best odds. I think the place to start is, what does Candace Parker offer this team as they try to defend their title? She's 37. It's a new spot. It's her playing with Asia Wilson and Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young and this team where she's stepping into De'Arca Hamby's minutes and role and roster spot. This also could be the very first team to repeat as NBA champions since 2001-2002. Look, this team has a ton on the table, and it's a chance for Candace Parker to just add another layer to her legacy. So how does she fit? How long does it take for her and Asia to kind of find that balance in the front? I'm fascinated to watch what Becky Hammond is going to do schematically with those two.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can play them high-low together a lot. Have Candace feed Asia in the post, have Candace sort of seal and let Asia drive. She's so good at, driving to that strong hand on her left. Asia's even become a pretty decent three-point shooter, so you could theoretically just post hub Candace and spread the floor around her. Candace ideally should not be shooting as much, but she can still operate, out on the perimeter, even if she's not necessarily guarded there. But I think the thing I'm most excited about with Candace is that she gives the Aces another grab-and-go option. De'Arca Hamby, for all of her gifts, not really a decision maker in transition. But Candace Parker, great defensive rebounder, incredible outlet passer, maybe the best ever at her position. And you get the Aces running in transition. You get Kelsey Plum running against a compromised defense in transition. Good freaking luck. So just pushing the pace a little bit for the Aces, I think, is really the most exciting thing that Candace is going to do, because I think she'll fit in pretty seamlessly defensively. I think De'Arca Hamby's probably still a better wing defender than Candace Parker is, but you've brought in Alicia Clark. Jackie Young gets better. I don't think it's really a big miss that they're going to have without having Hamby. But team defense-wise, I think Candace can be great. And then just, adding that extra transition element is, really the main thing I see her bringing.
Mine obviously touches on the new addition of Candace Parker as well, but part of, and it's always a bummer to have to look at things this way, but part of when you're looking at who's going to last and win the championship that this team might struggle with is staying healthy. I mean, Alicia Clark is 35, Candace Parker is 37, even Chelsea Gray is 30, Raquana Williams, they're sort of sixth player off the bench.
Oh my God, don't say she's old. She's 30.
Yeah, well, look.
Brendan, what are you saying about people who are 30?
I'm not saying anything. They're all wonderful. Everybody who's over 30 is a delight to hang out with and has never seemed old or looked old or acted old in their life. And then Raquana Williams is 32. And she was pretty instrumental for them as well. So, not any of those players necessarily have some sort of detrimental recent injury history. Obviously, Alicia Clark had a season missed a little while ago and whatnot, but nothing serious. It's just relying on those players as heavily as they probably will. That concerns me. So I just sort of does their age catch up with them? But again, you're picking Nits in literally the favorite to win the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Asia's in her prime, Jackie, Kelsey in their primes. Did I say Kelsey or Chelsea? I'm not even sure, but Plum is in her prime. Gray is, coming off of the greatest playoff run, scoring wise, arguably in WNBA history. So I'm not concerned about their core four losing a step. And there is no team, not even New York, that can compete with that four, I think.
It would not shock me if they just look way better than everyone for the course of the year. Even the Liberty, who like we've all said we think are gonna win, it just feels like it is already kind of ready made. Even with Candace Parker coming in, like that doesn't feel like it's gonna be a massive adjustment for what that team is. Probably some slight stuff, probably some minor things, but nothing crazy.
The regular season wins record in the WNBA is 29 wins, but that's in 36 games. This year's a 40-game season. I would expect the Aces to crush that 29 number. Their over-under, I believe, is 30.5 already. But I'm going to keep an eye on the win percentage, I guess, just because I don't want to, say that they just have to beat 29. But yeah, I think we're going to be setting some regular season records in Las Vegas just because of the continuity that they have, the FU attitude already, especially after these investigations. There's going to be some quite excellent basketball happening during the regular season.
Are you allowed to have an FU mentality if you got investigated for breaking rules? I'm not sure.
Apparently, if you don't think you broke the rules.
Yeah.
Brendan, without saying names, have you seen how certain people in our country act when they get accused of things?
Yeah. Yes, I have. I was going to say, instead of no one believes in us, it's going to be no one believes us. It's like the one word less version of the back against the wall mentality that some teams have. But yeah, they should be fun. They should be a lot of fun. I trust their perimeter shot creation, I think, more than the Liberty. That's one advantage that they definitely have between Plum and Gray and even Jackie Young. And then obviously Asia Wilson is all levels of the floor is able to impact. But let's go on to the Liberty. They're plus 125 to win the championship at BetMGM. My question here was, how quickly can the defense click? Because I think that's the advantage that they have over Vegas. I mean, even last year when Vegas won the championship, they were a middling defense statistically. They have maybe some lineups that are better than others. Obviously, Asia had a great individual season, but I think that the Liberty with Stewie and Jonquel Jones, as well as Kayla Thornton and Benijah Laney, could just completely extinguish a half-court offense depending on who's on the court. But all those players have not played together yet. So
yeah,
that's not as quick of a thing to just click into place, especially because I think defense tends to take longer than offense. So what do you think, Sabrina? Is that something we see mid-season, by the end of the season, or do you feel like it can come into place quicker than that?
Yeah, so I actually think that the Liberty are going to finish with third best record during the regular season. I think it's going to take some time for them to figure it out. Admittedly, third doesn't seem all that low, but when you think about the hierarchy of teams this year, third is, not, I think, where they would expect to be finishing. I think Washington, with all of their continuity, even bringing in a new head coach, the fact that it's still Tebow and he's been on the staff all of these years, I think it's going to be a relatively seamless transition. So I don't think that's going to be like an immediate fix. Salute hasn't played yet. She had a concussion during training camp, just barely joined practice. She was not in either of their preseason games. Stewie and Jonquel only played in one preseason game. As far as the defense, I'm very concerned about the perimeter defense. Just Sabrina and Salute together in that backcourt create some openings. I saw Kelsey Plum, in the preseason just abuse Sabrina over and over again. And I think that is exactly the place that opposing teams are going to target when they're playing New York. But, Stewie, cards on the table, I voted for Defensive Player of the Year last year, just does so many things on the court. Like her length is overwhelming and just unassuming sometimes because her arms are just so much longer than you'd expect them to be. I mean, just for NBA fans, she has the same dimensions as Taylor Horton Tucker, and just think about how lanky he looks. So she just gets everywhere on the court. And now that she has a veritable rim protector behind her in Jonquel Jones, who can take those burlier center matchups, who can actually, do things against Asia Wilson or, the other centers that they're going to have to come up against, I think they have a great foundation for that front court defense. But I am still very concerned about how that backcourt is going to look. And Sandy is going to have to, come up with some creative ideas on how to hide Sloot and Sab because, especially against a team with the perimeter scoring power of the Aces, like, concessions are going to have to be made.
Where are we at with Sabrina, do you guys think? She just signed this contract extension through 2025. Mm-hmm. I think obviously part of the idea of bringing Stewie is being like, we already have Sabrina here. We already have this triple-double machine, an up-and-coming star. We'll go get other pieces. We're going to spend a bunch of money as we need to. We're that kind of team. But where are we at with Sabrina as she is such a key piece, I think, in them realizing that their title odds? Like, I mean, she has to, I think, be like another level this year. I think if these odds are going to have them that close to Vegas, I think she has to have like something of a breakout year. Really, it feels like.
Yeah, I think what we learned last year is that Sabrina gets overtaxed when she's on the ball all the time. And that's why you bring in a player like Courtney Vandersloot. That's why you have Maureen Johannes coming off the bench who can run the offense. That's why you have players like Stewie and Jonquel Jones who can create their own shots. Even Benaja Laney, who can theoretically create her own shot, although I think that is the least exciting option on the starting five that New York is running. So I do believe that she is going to have a very efficient season, right? All of her shots should be very, very uncontested considering the other threats that are on the court and the fact that, one of the greatest point guards in WNBA history is feeding her the ball. So I think that's what I'm really looking for Sabrina is lower usage, being willing to come off the ball, being willing to, do things off the ball, not just stand in the corner or stand on the wing and wait for the action to proceed, like actually running off of screens, actually flying off handoffs and things like that, turning yourself into more of an off-ball player and complimenting the stars because she's not the best player on this team. She's not even the second best player on this team, but she has to be as, dangerous of a marksman as she possibly can, considering all the other options that are there.
Do you think there's any games, maybe come playoff time, like, do you think it's a realistic possibility that one of those two guards is not on the court to close the game? Or is that like third rail, they're too talented and you can't compromise that?
That's an interesting question. I mean, we haven't seen them play together yet, so I'm hesitating to split them up just now. But
yes, but for the concerns you brought up defensively,
yeah, I could see a guard, one of them plus Thornton, Laney, Stewie, Jonquel, and then you have this super wingy, rangy lineup that could cause a lot of trouble. I could definitely see that as a, just additional pitch during the fourth quarter. But I'm more excited to watch them play together right now.
That's fair. All right. Washington Mystics. Yeah, plus 1,400.
Those are good odds.
I thought that going into the playoffs last year, I will not lie, I put some money on the Mystics in the series that they lost. So I'm done being that confident, but I love this team. Chris, go first for us.
So I'm going with Elena Delle Donne. Just she's saying she's going to play the whole season. A, does that hold? Mm-hmm. And B, is that is it going to happen? Does she see the Elena Delle Donne of can she play the whole season? And is that enough to put them, if she is at her best and is healthy the whole year, is that on its own enough to put them in the title race as the third team in the title race? I think it's possible. She's that good. The rest of that roster really I don't have a ton of questions about the coaching transition just because that's someone that was already in house that right. It's not like you brought in someone from outside. You kind of know that's her. Yes, it's a first year coach, but it's kind of a very unique situation in that sense. It's all about
you don't have to deal with the
awkwardness
of firing the head coach either, right? He just stepped aside.
Yeah, it's just he's still here, and it's the guy's dad, so it's just it's all literally the family here. So if she's healthy all year and plays, I think this team should be really poised to be awesome and maybe have a run at the title depending on how things break.
What I really want to see this season is an Aces Mystics playoff series. I feel like that's what we were denied last year. And even though Aces Storm was obviously incredible, like I'm not saying that I did not enjoy any part of that series, but there's something about what the Mystics do, that they have 3 devastating perimeter defenders. Now it's not Alicia Clark, it is Brittany Sykes instead of her, but they were really able to put pressure on Las Vegas last year and just snuff out bits of their offense in a way that no other team was able to. And their defense, far and away the best in the league last year. Like, it was just so impressive to watch. Kind of susceptible to like really quick guards at the point of attack, but that's not really how Chelsea Gray operates. It's more of a problem with Kelsey Plum. But like with that perimeter trio with Shakira Austin, I love that defense so much. The problem, as we learned last year, was they just couldn't score enough points. And that really comes down to, well, Elena Deladon, maybe the best singular offensive player of the last 10 years in the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if she's playing 36 out of 40 games, this is a top 3 offense. She's that good. I would say that she's probably, got to be like an early front runner for MVP, just because you'd imagine some of those Liberty aces are going to cannibalize some votes. And if she plays enough games, it's a good story too. She just makes things so much easier for the players around her. Like, she's can score from any place on the court. She's a triple threat basically in any situation. She can get her shot off against like really tall defenders too, because of how high her release is. And like surprisingly good passer, like that we never talk about, like because she draws so much attention and manages to create openings for the rest of her team. I really do believe that if we get a fully healthy Elena Deladon season, like we're going to be talking about those 3 teams together, the Mystics, the Liberty, and the Aces. Maybe more so the Mystics and the Liberty and then the Aces. But I think that the Mystics have a lot of regular season potential, especially because of that continuity. When we get to the playoffs, it's going to be a lot about matchups. Because, like, I love Elena Deladon. She's not guarding Stewie. It's just not happening. You can't have her and, Shakira Austin taking care of Stewie and Jonquil Jones. So if they could somehow finagle it that they play Las Vegas before New York, I actually really like that matchup for them. But that's not how I predicted it. I predicted Washington to finish second in the regular season standings. So we'll see how that goes.
How good do you think Shakira Austin can be this year? I wanted to put it like, could she be an all-star? But
yeah, that
felt
really good question.
Potentially aggressive, but like she was so good, and we tend to see development kind of jump in the W with how weird player development can be.
Yeah, totally. So Washington, great place for player development. First of all, I think she's in a fantastic position to get better. I don't think that's an aggressive question. As one of the 57 Rookie of the Year voters last year, I was one of the 2 who picked Shakira Austin. So I feel very strongly about how important she was to winning last year. Just really smart defensively, makes so many smart movements on offense. Like, she never stays in one place. She's always relocating to get the spacing right on offense, which I think is so hard to do as a rookie, especially considering she played in the SEC for a couple of years, where like the SEC has a lot of gifts when it comes to college basketball conference. Offensive spacing, not really one of them. So for Shakira Austin to look that good as a rookie, she played in USA basketball camp, was really impressive there, had a nice overseas season. I think All-Star is not off the table, truly. Like, if she puts up some high-level rebounding numbers, just gets a bunch of dump-offs, from all of the dribble penetration that's going to be happening from Errol Atkins and Sykes, cleans up just some of that stuff, she could be averaging, 12 and 8 and anchoring the best defense in the league. That could be an all-star.
Chris, we haven't really talked W yet on the podcast since free agency, but I'm a Mystics stan, so you're gonna have to get used to that.
That's fine. I'm going to DC for something else in late July, and when I'm there, on my list of things to buy, I'll be buying something Mystics. I don't need Nationals gear. I don't need Commanders gear.
Why would you need Nationals gear? That's
I think Shakira Austin gear is the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna find
obviously.
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm going to get Shakira Austin and then maybe send Brendan something in the mail is what's going to happen. I'm also going to buy him something Chelsea because I'm seeing Chelsea Football Club play, and I'm going to send him something Chelsea that I find, which is depressing for him personally because he roots for Chelsea.
It's like one of those gifts that actually just ends up making you a little more upset than you were before you got it. But
I got a college graduation present that was a shirt in Celtic green that said, "I hate Kobe," and I didn't really know what to do with it because I adore the person who gave it to me. I've never managed to throw it out.
I feel like you maybe I feel like that person. Wow, that's amazing to be
And
honest.
it has an exclamation point with like a 4-leaf clover as the dot on the exclamation point.
Oh my
It
goodness.
really goes for it. Yeah. But anyway, who's number 4?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Chris. So we only have a little bit
the-
of time left. Do you want to go through the
Yeah.
top 6 maybe, and speed
Yeah, well,
speed our way through 4 through 6 here?
So can I be honest with you? I actually there's a couple teams that I feel like we can skip because there's actually I feel like I want to talk about the Storm and I want to talk about the Sparks who are lower down. They are actually
do
near
it.
both very near the bottom, but there's transition. But let's run through the odds. The Phoenix Mercury plus 2,000 are next.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, those that feels optimistic to me. And look, on a very human level, Brittany Griner's been through a lot. I don't know what we can like. I just don't know what that is going to look like. I have no idea. I don't think anyone can reasonably say. Diana Taurasi is the GOAT, but she's about to turn 41. I don't know what is going on here exactly. Okay, Connecticut Sun plus 3,500. First year post Kurt Miller. Transition year. Chicago Sky, we talked with them a little bit, plus 4,000. Seemed like they're just saying F a rebuild. Let's just win some games. Good for them. I
They
respect
don't know their
it. We'll
pick
see if it
anyways,
works.
so why not?
Yeah. Who needs picks? We had Ricky O'Donnell on a while ago, and before we started recording, one of the things he said was he was really mad that they won't have a pick probably the year Caitlin Clark comes out, and he was just like, we just like you won and everything, but like tough look to maybe not be
At
able to
what
take
cost?
Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
At what cost? Not getting the Caitlin Clark. Minnesota Lynx plus 4,000. Diamond Miller, Collier's back. That's a really big deal. Top 15 player.
Another
league.
person that I will talk more about than you probably would like me to. Love Fee.
Yeah, she's amazing. Great to have her back. Atlanta Dream, we talked about them a little bit. Shout out to Haley Jones. Ryan Howard back. Maybe playoff team plus 4,500. The Dallas Wings also plus 4,500. Kind of bullish on this group, if I'm being honest. Arike, Howard, McCowan. If Satu can be healthy, I think there's some
well,
upside
that's
to
a
that
big
group.
If Satu can be healthy is just the line of the season. The line of
Look,
the
I
last
saw
2 weeks
I saw
is
that on
now.
there, Chris, and I was like, you and me both. But
I
you,
want
me, and
good,
everyone who works for the Dallas Wings, I think would love that.
I want good things in the world. I'm putting it out there. We're getting healthy. All right, let's go. Here's the Seattle Storm, plus 5,000. This is a whole new Seattle Storm era, folks. This is Jewel Lloyd's team now. Ezzy's team now. There's no Sue Bird. Stewie's gone. This is just going to be something we have never seen from this team before. They're not going to win the title. Like, they're not. I don't know if this isn't even like a playoff team. But I'm always fascinated to see how teams transition out of this, particularly a team that has been as good and as relevant and competitive for as long as they have with the level of star that they've had. And Julie's great, but she's not at the level of Stewie or like Prime Sue Bird. What does this look like now? I think is such a fascinating question to see how they adjust to this reality in this version of the franchise.
So one of my favorite things to do during the WNBA training camp season is complain about how each team is keeping 5 bigs on their roster. It's really like one of my very favorite pastimes. I don't know why they all need 5 bigs. But Seattle has done something very interesting. They only have 3 bigs on their roster.
Good.
And one of them is a 3rd-round rookie who played at South Florida last year, whose name, unfortunately, I have a very difficult time pronouncing. Dulcie is her first name. That's what we're going to go with. So not investing a lot of resources.
I think you made the right decision not trying on that one.
Not investing a lot of resources in the front court. I love Ezzy Magbagor. I love Mercedes Russell. Either of them needs a rest. It's going to look very weird in Seattle. And I do think that I'm glad that they've invested so much, or I shouldn't say invested, but they're putting so much in the hands of their rookies, right? Like they've got Jordan Horston. I think they waived Maddie Williams, but they've got a lot of young players, a lot of second draft type players with Arella Garantes, Kyla Charles, Jade Melbourne, Ivana Jokic, like just players who we don't know what they can do because either they haven't played in the WNBA or haven't really had minutes in the WNBA, but this is their chance to just like throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks. I do wish that they had given me like one spacing big just to help all these people get to the paint, because none of those guards that I just mentioned really have great jumpers. And I think they do better when they have spacing centers. So if they had just like thought about, a Jasmine Walker, who I realize not a great basketball player by any stretch of the imagination, but a 3-point shooter, a power forward, or like Teresa Plaisance, who is a theoretical spacer at the very least. She still gets guarded like a shooter will stand behind the 3-point line. Again, give your guard some space to get to the rim. I just keep thinking about Jordan Horston in college and how different it looked when she was playing next to Tamara Key and could not finish a damn thing at the rim versus when she had like Caroline Striplin as her center. And all of a sudden, like these wide open lanes are available and she looks like a potential, lottery pick. Obviously, she falls to number 9 in Seattle, but this is a lot of analysis, I think, for a team that I think is going to finish 12th in the WNBA regular season this year. But
that's fine. This is my fault. Like, if you want
No,
a
it's
wild,
not.
I'm fascinated by the
not
roster
bad.
construction.
yeah. Look,
I think so. My question was along the lines of the bigs.
Mm-hmm.
You had an interesting note in the preseason power rankings you did about what Ezzy does next to Mercedes Russell after having maybe her best season with Russell missing a lot of time. What do you think? What do you think Ezzy can do? Do you think we see her expand her shooting range more? Do you think it's just a great defensive duo, but eventually they move on from one of them offensively because the offensive fit isn't good enough? Because that's probably the thing that I'm going to be keyed into the most, aside from just Jewel doing Jewel things on her own.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I imagine we're going to see a lot of high post action for Mercedes Russell. So that leaves a little bit more room in the lane for Ezzy. I do think that they're going to try to expand Ezzy's range out to 3-point land. She kind of experimented with that last year, but this is the year to try everything in Seattle, right? Like any skill that you want to try to develop, this is the time to do it because not a lot of talent on the team, and oh boy, the next draft is going to look good. So just keep trying. But yeah, I think this is you have to play them together because one, we mentioned there's the one backup big, but two, you just need to see what you have for the future, right? Like they're both really good players. I'm a big fan of both of them, but I don't know what they look like together. I don't think that the offensive fit is going to be all that seamless because, like I mentioned, not a lot of spacing around this group either. Like Kia Nurse, theoretical shooter, Sammy Whitcomb, I guess she's like the lone real spot up shooter on this roster. But then Jewel Lloyd, I kind of mentioned this, in something I wrote earlier. Her efficiency was outright terrible the year that Stewie and Suber didn't play in 2019 when she was the number 1 option. And that was a more talented Seattle team than what we're seeing now. Yeah. So those are like my 2 main questions is what do Ezzy and Mercedes look like next to each other? And then can Jewel actually carry an offense, or is she, destined to be that number 2, number 3 role?
Yeah, Ezzy's a good free throw shooter, and she always has been. So I'm optimistic. Another player that I believe in to my core, and we'll see what happens. But
I'll be watching a lot of Seattle, I can guarantee.
Yeah.
34.5% on threes for Ezzy last year, a little under 1 a game. Maybe just for fun, 2.5 a game this year just to see. Why not? Like, what's the harm?
I like it. I like it. Somebody's got to shoot them. Ezzy and Sammy, let's do it.
Just let them fly. You're doing your team. If they don't go in, you're helping your team get better players.
I don't think you'd be a very good player development coach, Chris. Hey, if you mess this up, that'll actually be better for us. So keep doing it.
What team would take my advice though, and seemingly has that? Like I would be like, do that. The Houston Rockets like kind of operate that way if you really think about it.
They have.
Yeah, because we love the Rockets player development right now.
How has that gone? They leaked out that they might trade their former top 3 picks. So
yeah, just to give James Harden lots of money.
I don't think that's
so he can. Yeah, look, I didn't say that I was. I'm just saying someone would take this approach, and it's Tillman Fertitta apparently.
Well, you can talk to him about a job then.
I did see him at Summer League once, like looking at restaurants, and I was like, Tillman, why are you in this casino? Don't you art like it was very weird. Just buy a WNBA team, told me. You don't need a restaurant. Just let's get a WNBA team in Houston. Seems like it would be a good market for it. All right, last team we're going to head on, the Los Angeles Sparks. Kurt Miller is there. They have the Guma case. They're out of the Derek Fisher era. Like
Thank the good Lord.
They can be cleansed. Like they could transition to something new and healthy and like something. Kurt Miller's a great coach. This obviously just feels like one of those like markets that at some point like it's just gonna like people like to be in LA. Like I would believe that this will figure itself out at some point. But like this team is the odds suggest like the only team with worse odds is the Indiana Fever, who are like horrendous. And have been horrendous, even though they have a lead Boston. Like the team is bad. I'm very curious to see like what the foundation laid with this team is. Like this, they're this is just you get a reset here. You went and got a new coach who's like an actual good coach, and you still have your franchise pillars. What do you do with that, and where do you get to? I'm really curious to see kind of what they set up here to maybe do in the future, and maybe bring in one of the highly touted prospects that could be in 2024. Like this seems like one of the prime landing spots if things go right here. They get someone in 2024, you kind of get rolling there, but we have to see how this year goes, obviously.
Yeah, so I just want to do a quick audit of the Derek Fisher era, just real quick. First round pick in the 2019 draft, Kalani Brown, out of the league. Second round pick in the 2019 draft, Marina Mabry. They traded her away for a second round pick so they could clear cap room to sign Simone Augustus, because that went very well. 2020, they drafted Beatrice Montpremier in the second round. I don't believe she's still in the league. 2021, they drafted Jasmine Walker and Stephanie Watts in the first round. Both of those players are out of the league. They also traded a 2022 first-round pick for the rights to select Jasmine Walker. That pick became Emily Angsler, but of course, she's also out of the league. And 2022, they drafted Ray Burrell in the first round. She is, you guessed it, out of the league. So this is the collection of young talent that the Sparks are working with. This is the backbone that we have. No first-round picks from the Derek Fisher era. Luckily, they have Zia Cook from this season. Thank the good Lord. I actually liked the Sparks offseason plan quite a bit, which was to get some, wingish shooters to surround like their bigs, which I think is a strength of this team. Alas, Katie Lou Samuelson will miss the entire season. Stephanie Talbot tore her ACL and is going to miss the entire season. So that plan kind of backfired. Now we have this 3-guard starting lineup of Jordan Canada, Layshia Clarendon, and Lexi Brown starting things off, which, not a wing in that roster. So I think we're going to get a Kurt Miller special of a lot of 3 big units. This is one team where I kind of understand why they were carrying 5 bigs, especially because Dearica Hamby is returning from maternity leave. Azurá Stevens, who quietly one of the most surprising free agency signings, I think, of the entire offseason, because she had her pick of the litter and decided to come to LA. Like, that is the clearest indicator of this being a market and a franchise that people want to come to, which has just not been the case for the last 4 years. But she, suffered an injury in Europe. She won't be playing to start the season. So, we're going to see some Joyner Holmes, like wing forward lineups. We're going to see a lot of Chinea-Gumake-Neka and Dearica Hamby playing together. A lot of Layshia Clarendon, Carly Samuelson, small forward type situations. I have a smile on my face. I don't really believe it, but Kurt Miller is a very good coach. I think just having a competent basketball mind is such a huge upgrade over what was happening the last 4 years. I can't overstate it.
No,
and then not only competent, he's a good basketball coach, like a very good basketball coach.
No,
I just don't see the talent here yet. Like, they have 9 healthy players right now, and maybe Zia Cook like pops really early, but like there's a lot of guards who can't really shoot, and there's a lot of bigs on the roster, and I don't know how that meshes with one another. So
look,
we will see.
I went and Googled Derek Fisher like real quick when you started giving the audit, and I was just like reading his like wiki and his basketball coaching journey, and it's insane. It's insane. The fact that they just like hired someone who's like actually a professional coach, who's like worked in the league and knows what they're doing, and like has like strong ideas and opinions about like how to like organize a basketball team. IMO, that's a good thing for the Sparks. That's a good thing.
The biggest parts of the audit, now that I think about it. Can I just recap?
Yeah, of course. Quick? Let's do it. Yeah.
So Fisher stakes his reputation on signing Liz Cambage prior to his last season, which we all saw how that turned out. Another Liz Cambage reference on this podcast. Very happy to make that happen.
Good for Liz.
He also trades a future first-round pick to dump Erica Wheeler's salary. Erica Wheeler, who's perfectly likable veteran, adequately paid, I think, and bring in Kennedy Carter, who everyone on the team hates so much, but he guarantees her 4th-year option. And now because of that, the Sparks can't afford to pay 12 players this year because they're still paying Kennedy Carter not to play for them.
Really good job, Derek Fisher.
It'd be one thing if he messed up a bunch of GM stuff and was just like really a great tactician, but it was neither, unfortunately.
Did we mention that he benched Candace Parker in the 4th quarter of an elimination playoff game? That happened. Yeah, that happened.
It did happen.
Look, the weather in LA is great.
Really good jerseys.
Really good jerseys.
I do love the jerseys. Yes.
Really good jerseys. You have at least players on that team people know and care about in the Gumakes. Like, And again, you don't have Derek Fisher anymore. This is just like a team that feels like primed to just like, let's just look, you put some new flooring down this year. You make sure the foundation of the house is set up, and it's like you're off and running in a year. That's what this feels like to me. And like that,
they own their 2024 pick. They've got an extra one coming in. Like,
yeah,
things are looking up.
And if Zia Cook pops, you have like at the very least like you take a flyer on that, and if it doesn't work, okay. But if it does, you have something right there, and then you can maybe you're in the position to get one of these other like uber stars next year, a year from now. They are not going to win the title. They're going to be really bad. But they just as a transition kind of thing, just like moving from Derek Fisher to Kurt Miller is just like such a significant upgrade. That is just like I'm just like that you did the thing, you did the right thing, and like not hiring like a really bad coach. It's like when NBA teams like. It's like I could say this because I cover the Cavs. Mm-hmm. When we're like, hey, it's like we went David Blatt to Ty Lue. It's like, oh yeah, turns out the competent head coach who like has ideas about how to like organize things and design plays, and like the players don't hate. Mm-hmm. Maybe that guy should be the head coach. Should have been the head coach all along. I don't know.
I will say the Sparks are going to be involved in some very high-profile games to start the season. They open on Friday against Phoenix in Brittany Griner's first game back. And then they play next Saturday in Las Vegas on the Aces ring night, which happens to be when Becky Hammon comes back from her 2-game suspension. So, hello, Dearica Hamby.
Oh, boy. Oh, I didn't even realize that.
No drama there, right?
Yeah.
Well, she has to be there to get her ring, obviously.
Well, that's true. I get that, but yeah, that's funny.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, that's our WNBA questions for all these teams. Sabrina, thank you so much for coming through, talking about the Lakers. I'm sorry they lost for your sake. But that's how we're going to run it past in the show. It's like I had the Cavs, Brendan had the Suns. It's just I think how this goes, you know? It's tough.
We can't bring any. We had a Nuggets person on earlier in the season. That's over.
Unbearable.
Back.
Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the WNBA season to start. So, yeah.
Yeah. Just tell everyone what you guys are doing over the Athletic as we get out of here.
Yeah, so we have a special series going on during this WNBA season at the Athletic called Super Squads that is profiling the Aces and the Liberty, just how they built their teams and how they're bringing the rest of the league along with them as they, sort of pioneer a new model of ownership in the W. And so you can look for stuff about the Aces and the Liberty every week on the Athletic in addition to all of our other WNBA happenings. So keep an eye out.
And Brendan and I are now going to talk about Celtics Heat, a.k.a. Jimmy Butler is the king of all kings.
Enjoy.
Thanks again to Sabrina Merchant from The Athletic for talking Lakers Warriors with us, talking WNBA with us. Brendan, let's move on to Heat Celtics. Miami did it. They won game one. Here we go again. Jimmy Butler has 35 and 7. Every starter except Kevin Love's in double figures. Kyle Lowry's out here looking like Miami Kyle Lowry in his 28 minutes off the bench with 15 and 3 and 6 of 12 and 3 of 5 from 3. And then on the other side, Brendan, this is really where I want to start.
Okay.
I was like ready to say I think we've seen the Jason Tatum breakthrough. I was there. Game 6, he has that horrendous start, and he comes up clutch and helps win that game to extend the series. They get to Game 7. He plays. He's the best player on the floor. He's attacking Embiid, playing decisively, like a real playoff solidifying performance. And then in this game, he does have 30, but like is barely shooting down the stretch. Has 3 travels in big moments, and just has 1 assist. And like, I don't understand like what that performance was for him, coming off of these 2 like real bona fide playoff awesome places to start. So I don't know if you want to start Miami. I don't know if you want to start with Tatum and what Boston and what went wrong there. But I was struck by how Miami just shows up ready to go, and Jimmy at the spearhead of that, and Tatum looked like a completely different player than the guy we saw in Game 7.
Well, Tatum's just 19, so he still has a way to go, right? I think this is just who he is. I mean, at least for right now, because like, wouldn't you have said the same thing last year after Game 6 in Milwaukee? 46 points, 7 of 15 from deep
Yeah.
and winning a road game 6 with their backs against the walls against Giannis. I mean, that felt like a turning point. And then, he was fine, I think you would say, in the Eastern Conference Finals, probably pretty great, against these Heat. He had a couple duds, but pretty good. And then in the finals, inconsistent, not very efficient. And now we, head into the summer with some questions about him. And then, okay, now it's really when he turned the page. It's like, I think that inconsistency is sort of just what the package of Jason Tatum is right now. And maybe by the time he turns 20, things will be different. But for right now, at age 19, that's just who he is.
Maybe
Maybe
when he can have a beer, he can go to order have a beer or a
when
drink.
He can be like Luka and have the victory beer.
When he can be
the victory IPA.
or when he can be like more aptly for the series, when he can like Jimmy Butler be in Michelob Ultra commercials.
Exactly. But I mean, really, like, he is only 25, right? And like, I don't know how much you factor that in. Literally you versus also just anyone watching and the general NBA public. I guess when you've been around for so long in these playoff moments, you just get more is expected out of you. But I think inconsistency for a 25-year-old is pretty reasonable, all things considered. It's just, I think the thing that jumps out, and honestly, like, I think we could even just focus on this third quarter and cover most of what happened in this game through it and just what's going to continue to happen, because it was quintessential Miami Heat and quintessential Boston Celtics in this third quarter. And I think from the Celtics standpoint, and Tatum is exactly who showed up in my notes the most. Marcus Smart took 6 field goal attempts, took 6 shots in this third quarter. It might have even been 7. He was 2 of 6, maybe 2 of 7. Went 1 of 2 at the free throw line. Had a couple assists, a couple nice passes, also a couple turnovers. Jaylen Brown had some Jaylen Brown moments, and I mean that in the good and bad ways. The hand might continue to bother him. But Jason Tatum didn't get his first points in the third quarter as Miami was tying the game, then taking the lead, then taking control. He didn't score until the 4-minute mark of that third quarter, as Joe Mazzulla's not calling a timeout and the Heat are just laying it on. That just encapsulated like everything going on in this series to me, that the lead was slipping away while Boston seemed to not have a plan on offense, and Miami just looked like a well-oiled machine that they have been for this whole postseason, and honestly, for almost 2 decades at this point.
I think the Heat also just like deserve credit for continuing what is going on here.
Well, they got to win. Does that count as credit?
Yeah, but it's just like, I think Jimmy Butler is having like just a playoffs that we should be talking about beyond these playoffs. Like, it is just astounding how well he has played these entire playoffs and done so many different things and taken on all these different roles, playing 43 minutes in this game. And they have an edge all the time, right? Like, they just do. Like they're getting like Cody Zeller coming in and playing 9 minutes just to set screens, and it's just like they're humming along and winning game 1s on the road. And it's like there are clear advantages like they have in this series. I think one of the beauties of this NBA and what has made these playoffs chaotic at times in a fun way is that the Heat have like this big coaching advantage, and Jimmy is playing at this level, and it's like you can't really count them out of any of this, and like the mentality of that team with what Jimmy's saying about, like, yeah, we thought we could do this when we were struggling against the Bulls. Like, of course, like there's never any doubt in this group that they're going to accomplish something. And Boston is kind of like in some ways the right team with Tatum as its star, the way he plays right now. And Jaylen Brown saying after the game, it's like we came out a little cool, and it's like Matt Moore was like, well, it's not like this has ever happened before, and surely it won't happen again. It's like this is going to happen again. Yeah. Like game 4 could be like this, game 5 could be like this. God help Boston Celtics and they're the health of their fans and being able to survive that. Like, could happen in a game 7.
Yeah.
Like this just feels like a very like weird part of the series, that it's like beyond the X's and O's, beyond like what we think of these guys. It's just like there's these two teams are like wired differently. Like they just kind of are. And I know Heat cultures like make fun of it. It's like this whole playoffs run, Brendan, is like proof that this organization is like actually built differently. It just is. Like, I am just there with it. Like, the proof is in the pudding with this now. It just is.
Yeah, with Jimmy, I think, and Lowry, who you mentioned at the beginning, both of those guys, I think, to circle back to that third quarter, which was 46-25, that just, to me, those two and the way that they alternated, well, really, it started with Bam at the beginning. They were going right at Robert Williams, who, that's an interesting question looking forward, which maybe we can do to close this part of the show out. He was a minus 14. And Bam got a couple buckets on him. Jimmy got a couple buckets on him in the early part of that third quarter. Then Jimmy has the ball in his hands the minute that Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown go out. They're really hitting transition stuff for a while there when they take the lead. Then Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown hit the bench. The ball goes right into Jimmy's hands. He starts going into drive and kick mode. They get some good stuff out of that. Then the Celtics put Jason Tatum onto Jimmy Butler. Immediately, the Heat go to the ball in Lowry's hands. We're going to run a pick and roll with Lowry and Cody Zeller to attack Horford and to attack Peyton Pritchard, who are the weakest defenders on the court. They get some good stuff out of that. A Lowry mid-range jumper, a Max Strus corner three. And it's just the effortless way that they're able to alternate between what they're attacking and who is controlling the offense from the Heat side, without feeling like they're missing a beat, without looking scrambled, without looking uncertain in any way, shape, or form is huge. And it kind of illustrates exactly that mentality difference is one part of this, but it's also a sort of philosophy difference in terms of scheme and stuff too, because offensively, the Celtics, we talked about the random offenses a couple weeks ago on the show, and like, I think some of that maybe, again, like I said before, bad branding, bad PR for calling your offense random. It makes it seem like no one has any idea what they're doing out there. But when you see, as this run is happening, Al Horford taking multiple transition, trailing threes, and Marcus Smart taking over, like I mentioned, with 6 shot attempts before Tatum takes a single one, that is all stuff that is the exact opposite of how the Heat were approaching that moment. And that's why the Heat come out with a lead. And then late, yeah, you mentioned Tatum's mistakes, the travels, everything else. Brown had a couple turnovers at the end of the game as well. You can focus on that, but it's like the lead should have never even gotten up. They were really dominant in the first half, and it's just this exact type of stuff that gets in their way where they're going to lose focus. They're going to lose concentration and not attack what needs to be attacked, and the Heat are never going to let up on that stuff.
Two last things. I think Lieutenant Robert Williams, was 6-6 from the field, but I thought a very poor defensive performance. Gave Jimmy a ton of space on the switches. Just got absolutely beat up. He has to be better. He has to play with a lot more force and aggression. And some of the old Robert Williams, like whatever he was last year, more than I think he's been for much of this year. If he's going to make a difference in the series, particularly if he has to spend time guarding Bam, because Bam is just gonna show up and kick ass.
Do you think they tried Grant Williams?
So this is where I wanted to go. Why the fuck was Peyton Pritchard playing in this game, Brendan? I do not understand. I don't understand this. Peyton Pritchard is a fine player. I think he could have roles in other teams. You are inviting him getting attacked in real ways. And it's he's not going to hold up. You're not using him to you didn't use him to his offensive capabilities as a shooter and an energy guy, right? He's just kind of there for cardio. And it's if you're going to have a guy do that and be there to maybe take 2 shots and maybe get a couple looks in 12 minutes, why not play Grant Williams? Why not play Sam Hauser?
I don't think it's one or the other, though, right? I mean, that's the thing. You could easily play both guys. To me, I hear you. I think not getting him involved offensively, you're not going to run sets for him, but the fact that he wasn't able to make an impact on that side, I think is a
Boston doesn't really run sets either, is the thing. Boston's offense is a little bit just yeah.
So then I don't know if you can necessarily blame any particular person for saying Peyton Pritchard didn't impact the game offensively. You're not going to put the ball in his hands. You're not going to run a set for him. Then, okay, I guess, sometimes it is just going to be cardio. But I hear that. I guess to me, it feels like they maybe underestimated what Jimmy was going to do to try to pick on that matchup, or the fact that Kyle Lowry was going to be able to exploit it also, which you mentioned. it was Toronto Kyle Lowry, so it's like even you were surprised. I guess you can give the Boston staff a little bit of slack for also being surprised.
Do we think the Heat are surprised? Like, honestly, like, do we think the Heat are just like know that they're gonna have this at some point? Because it feels like voodoo. It feels like witchcraft.
The Lowry
it feels
thing
like
is
blood magic.
Like, you can point to the undrafted guys with Miami. It's the Lowry part of this that I think is the most shocking. And the fact that Duncan Robinson was pretty effective in the first couple series. He didn't really play much last night. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they expected it, but it's working. But the other part of this with Pritchard is, like, Derek White was getting blown by or overpowered by Jimmy. So it's like, are you benching Derek White? Like, no. I mean, you sort of have to, like, you're stuck with what you got. I think the Grant Williams part to me is it might allow it. I would like to see if he could play against Bam directly, and maybe that would allow you to have Horford and Robert Williams in help a little bit more. Horford is going to be interesting in this series. I'm not sure. There might be some games where it's like, can he only be out there when Kevin Love or Cody Zeller are out there? Like, can you even get away with having him on Bam much at all? I'm not sure, but that's the problem. So I think that Grant Williams to me is a player that you could put out there to potentially do that for you. The other thing that I had in my sort of what are we looking at going forward thing, Caleb Martin is their best on-off guy in the playoffs. We knew he would have to be amazing in this series considering the wing depth that Boston has, and he's one of Miami's only non-Jimmy wings, somebody that's actually big. He was really good in this game. Made a three in that third quarter toward the end of their run that just another, he had like, I think every three he's made in these playoffs is like a no, yes type of thing where you're just like, there's absolutely no way that's going in. And then it does. Can he keep that up? That would be a big question for me because they got 30 solid minutes out of him. If that doesn't continue, if he has a cold shooting night, if he does get exploited defensively, if he gets into foul trouble, which he was verging on doing in this game, those are all things that I think then you're talking about. Does Duncan Robinson have to play? Who's guarding the Jays, etc.?
Boston could win this, right?
Of course, Boston can win this. They have.
Sorry. Miami. Can
Miami,
win this, right?
Yeah, I think I think both teams can win it. The other part is if Jaylen Brown is actually seriously hampered by this hand injury, which it certainly seemed like he was. I mean, he had 6 turnovers, which isn't uncharacteristic for him, but it is a lot, and was missing a lot of shots. He had a couple that it just felt like he was throwing like a frisbee at the basket, just like rocket ship that just collided with the rim and went nowhere, like awful shots. So that indicates to me that something's off just as much as the turnovers. I think Miami could absolutely win this. Yeah.
I've the one on this. This is the Jaylen Brown quote that I just can't stop thinking about. It's a choice. It's a decision. Just come out and play with a different mentality. I mean, we came out too cool. Like, it was almost just like we was playing a regular season game. It's the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, come on. We got to play with more intensity than we did today, and we just got to be better, including me. Just, it's wild.
Things you probably shouldn't be saying in mid-May, right?
Things you probably shouldn't be saying and shouldn't feel like kind of a somewhat defining characteristics of your team in some way. Weird stuff.
Do you think Miami will win? Who do you think will win? I mean, I know we could do that after every game and overreact, but like, did last night change anything about like, okay, this is a different series than I thought?
No, I still think Boston is better and will win, but like, is it going to go 7? I think probably.
Yeah. Big series for Tatum, like you said, full circle there, but you know. He's the best player on the court, even with how good Jimmy's been. I think Tatum has the most ways to impact the game, considering what he can do as a shooter, the size that he has, everything else. So he's at least as good as Jimmy, if not has the potential to be even better. And he has to do that because this Heat team, for whatever reason, feels like it's gelling even better than it was last year. So they already took him to 7. We'll see what happens.
And like if any team is going to know that what Miami can be in these settings, it probably should have just been the Celtics already.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thanks again to Sabrina Merchant. Thanks again to Jake Stevens and Dillon Heiser for producing. Thanks again to you, Brendan, for being an awesome co-host.
Thanks to you for saying that, I guess. I don't know. We're just throwing thank yous around. Thanks to Dillon. Thanks to Jake. Thanks to Sabrina from me as well.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back on Monday after more playoff basketball. Get into the nitty-gritty. We'll see where the series go between now and then. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the hoops.